Hello everybody, welcome back to SketchCraft Live. I'm Rob Duenas, and I am going to talk about lighting, basic lighting guides. So I use this stuff when I color markers, watercolor. Basically it's just good all around to kind of know how to light your characters. You don't have to be a genius at this, you don't have to study lighting for years and years and years. It helps. Just letting you know, it helps. I say always continually study lighting and all that shit. But you don't really have to get through, a comic book commission or some character art. You can do some very simple techniques. I like to stick to one of two ways to color or to light. Basic lighting, one tone, and that both involve a subtractive it's subtractive or additive. Basically, what that means is either you start with the character fully in shade and you basically erase out the shade to create the light sources, or you manually, we'll set this to 30%, paint in the shade. In this case, I'd fill it all with black, create a mask, invert, and in the mask, I can come in here, and all I'm going to hit is the X key to flip between positive and negative values. So if you were to have a character who's mostly being lit by daytime, with very little shadow, this is the best way to go. If you got a character who's going to be lit in a lot of shadow, the other way to do is to basically fill the character with black. I've already cropped out the edges. And then we'll go into a mask again, using the mask tool. And inside the mask, we can pop out the light sources. Create underlining. This is my preferred method for almost all my coloring, except for the points where there's going to be very little shade. Because there's no point in spending forever erasing, a crap load of shadows that aren't going to be in the final piece, right? So if there's very minimal shadowing going on, like it's, 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, then this is the better way to go, because you're doing the least amount of work. Yeah, that's what we're all talking about here, is the least amount of work that achieves the necessary result. See? And this right here is based on, again, the sun being way up here and looking down at a character. In this case, we're going to use the secondary method, which is filling the character black and paint out the shadows. When I do this, I think of one of two lighting guides, right? That means either one, the light is going to be coming from underneath the character, like so. It's very dramatic, right? Very dramatic. Okay. Fill that back with black and white again. Or it's coming from above the character. And here you have to think about your shapes being three-dimensional for this to work here, folks. Sometimes with the light coming above the character again, it's easier to go this route, where you kind of manually paint in the shadows. You can also just duplicate this. Do the same technique where you just so if it's coming this way, you could think. You have to use your imagination here, folks. A little bit. I tried to overthink a lot of the shadow placement because, quite frankly, it's a drawing, and the average person, you can only add so much to the drawing before it becomes muddled. So bolder, I find is better for readability. So I'm not going to come here and add tons of little crevices and pushes in my lighting guide. I can, like if I really want to pop something here, I can, but I'd rather say that for the final piece, see how that works, because I don't know if that's actually going to make a Sam Hill a difference. It's going to make any difference whatsoever for the overall lighting. The question is, which one do I use for this particular piece, right? It's a good question. It's a very good question. I tend to think the underlight is the way I'll go here, because it's just more dramatic. Sometimes these shade can be a little dark, so I may take that down to 20%. I fluctuate between 20 and 30 depending on, the evilness of the character. It's just because you don't want to end up in a chiaroscuro situation where the opacity is like, look at this. I think that's just going to be kind of weird, right? And you're not going to shade that darkly anyway. There you go. It's a little hard to see. So this doesn't have to be perfect. It's a guide. So I like to kind of see the figure all at once. You can always just block in a big area and then, kind of refine, hitting the X key. You flip between, again, black and white. You can go back in here and add a bit more of those little finer shadows. But it is best to get the overall lighting scheme down first. Pop out the chat window. I was just double checking to make certain that this is being streamed. So we can come in here. The idea will be that I will basically place the color where the shade is. That will be where I start to help round out the shapes. It's the basic idea for this. And again, it's pretty dramatic, right? It's kind of pretty. Yeah, a little careful with that. kind of show you like how this kind of ends up when you kind of get down here. Then we'll go through and just finish up the Wolverine. This is sort of the basic idea. We disable. You get the hard edges, right here. I like to add an extra mask. You add little soft edges. I'll show you how to do all that. In case you're all wondering, how does this apply, Rob? Well, that's basically how it applies. My goal when I like to paint now is I like to make sure the shapes pop. The character feels three-dimensional. That's my biggest goal. That the shapes pop and that the color is vibrant. And if I have to manipulate a light source to do that, then hey, it's fine. It doesn't have to be, this isn't a college level, like, you're not going to get graded. No editor's going to go, hey, that lighting source doesn't quite fucking, no fan's going to be like, I don't know, man, if that light's 100% perfect. Fellow artists might critique you, but whatever, As long as you were aware of what you're trying to do. You're like, yeah, I know, I was following that, but it looked cooler like this, so I changed it. We could try. And we're not going to highlight his, like, that would be mean to Wolverine. That would be an unfair thing to do to him, so I'm just going to go ahead and light the whole little area. Gotta be a little aware of that. Like, worked in boys' clothing, and if you put a little too much emphasis on Wolverine's groin or Spider-Man's groin, then that kid might get the shit kicked out of him. Now, that's an unfair thing for happening in the world, but you just don't want everyone looking at your really cool piece of art and being a little too much focus to people's nether regions, guy or girl. Like, with the girl, you want to be careful about that. So try to be a little tasteful. See, I'll ignore the light hitting that right there. Probably really, in actuality, it probably would, hit like this. But the piece won't look quite as cool. If you do that, it'll look a little off. So, because this right here will end up being blue, and then I can drip it down over into these white areas. So, but you could save these guides, and then when you start doing, marker commissions, they come right in handy. You do marker commissions, you do color pencil, it doesn't really matter. You'll have them all set up. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, it's not going to add much depth. So all I'm doing is hitting the X key, tapping back and forth. Now, let's say I like that, right? And I'm like, good enough, that's a good place to start. It's good enough to get going. Then you can soften the edges up really easily. We're going to just take the shade layer, we'll group it really quick and create another mask so we're not interfering with that. And then what you can do is come right around. I use this my brush, it's a softer brush. And we can come right in here, and then using with black we can come right around the edges and then just soften the edges. That's more metallic, so maybe on his skin and stuff, right? This way, if you don't like it, you can always just disable the layer mask. Even though it doesn't really affect how I paint this, looks cool. Yeah, makes sense when you post a picture of it on Instagram. People think, oh, look, it's painted. It looks cool. Cool part is that idea worked for a lot of different things. So let's say, let me go ahead and duplicate this really quick. Check this out. This is a nifty little trick. So you can come back here. We'll fill that back with black. Turn that off. Sorry, white. And then let's say I wanted a chalk style brush. Rather than painting with chalk all day. Oh, son of a bitch. No. I could replace my brushes. Yay, Photoshop. Always resetting preferences. Let's go to chalk. Check this out. You can come in here and just take the chalk brush. Flow's turned off. There's a rule for this. One of these gives you more texture, and one of them gives you less texture. See if I remember. I think in this particular case, yeah. I want to come in here and create more spacing with the brush. Let's see which one. Oh, you get the idea. I don't want to fiddle with this. I'll be here all fucking day. So, it doesn't really affect me any, but that's kind of like how I do a lot of chalk textures. Like, I'll actually paint it with the solid color and then come in with the chalk brush afterward. And add that sort of thing. So this way you're not spending your whole time trying to get a textured brush to come in there and do work for you. Let's see, what time is it? Where are we at? 22 minutes. So that's our basic Wolverine. Now, the cool part is I have a Wolverine blue and gold. So this right here is Wolverine blue and gold. I have a Wolverine brown and yellow I want to do. Well, I don't have to redo all that stuff all over again. We can just select the same mask, come down here, and then all we have to do is fix the parts that changed on his costume. Turn that down to 20%. So I can come here because his costume is a little bit different. We can even select the same soft edges. Just erase this part out. And then with the softer edge brush, come in here and mask out the edges. And that's ready to paint. You do this enough, and then if you're at a con and you have to do it on the fly, you can memorize it. Or you can just print all these out and keep a guide with you. I prefer to have a guide. I don't like memorizing a lot of these things. My head's filled up with enough nonsense. It's also why I make these videos, so I can remind myself. Or when Brandon goes, I have a question about lighting, I can be like, great, I made a video. Go watch it. Alright, so we can go ahead and just go ahead and delete that. Put that there. And then I have a Darkstalkers one here we can do really quick. At the 25-minute mark, we got time. She's already lit up, right? So she's in shadow. Set it back to my hard edge brush. And then I'll just think about the light coming from this way. So just using my imagination, how would it hit? You know, and trying to give her, you know, keep in mind that her fingers and her body shape should be three-dimensional. And with, again, with these intricate little pieces, like she's got these things on her head, little wings. This is Morgan from Darkstalkers. Um, it's better to kind of start big, like just mask it all out, and then kind of maybe like go in there and add some of the minor bits. And I just think that's too dark. It needs to come down to 20% instead of 30%. There. A little easier to read. So we'll go with the bigger areas first. I wonder. I want to experiment, so let me grab another. This is a way you can experiment without messing up your original work. I don't like to have a ton of undos. Yeah, see, that's not gonna. That'll just look a little odd. Why don't we do that? Why don't we come around this edge, and we'll just add that little rim light around. Thing is, when I'm painting, I just want to make sure I'm not cutting her in half with the color. Just wants to. It's tricky. You want to. I only know because I've done like 100 of these, and sometimes I've done that, and it's like, wow, they kind of look like they're cut in half. So this white, this rim light here, these might actually be painted in after the fact. Once the paint goes down, I can go and add some white highlights around the edges, just to break up that lighting scheme. Let's just go ahead and yeah, that's good enough. You know, honestly, like don't spend an hour doing this. It really shouldn't take you that long. So we're at the 35-minute mark. That gives us 1, 2. Oh, softer edges for her. You want to do softer edges? Let's do softer edges. Let's just go quickly right here. Grab my brush. We can just come and quickly. This is also how I tend to do my shading. minus the softer edge when I'm doing digital coloring. The only difference is once I block this in, these basic lights, I'll zoom in and clean it up. But there's no point in doing that for this. All right, cool. So 1, 2, 3. All right, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I will answer them. I get to everything. I will be working on stuff tonight. I'm uncertain. I might color April O'Neil or get started on the Battletoads. We shall see. We shall see. I will be back in a few. See y'all soon.